Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you and call to order our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, April the 8th. I would like to acknowledge that I am an ally of Indigenous peoples. The township of Lucan Biddulph is located on the treaty and traditional territory and ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and is covered by several Upper Canada treaties. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous peoples who call Lucan Biddulph home. We endeavor to unlearn colonial mindsets and practices and to grow in knowledge. As we build meaningful relationships, we recognize contributions of Indigenous peoples and respect their leadership and partnership in shaping and strengthening our community. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. So I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Tim Shipley on his recent well-deserved retirement from the Lucan Biddulph Fire Department. Tim joined the fire department on January 10th, 1995. His first call was, trivia, anyone? Was to the Central Hotel fire on Main Street. Tim moved up through the ranks, and in 2015, he became the deputy chief. I know that you all join me in thanking Tim for his dedication to the department and his commitment to ensuring that our community and our residents have been safe. So congratulations, Tim. Enjoy your retirement. I also want to take a moment to remind everyone that April is Be a Donor Month. Organ and tissue donations save lives. Do you know that one organ donor has the ability to save 8 lives? It is incredibly easy to become a donor. You can register to be a donor at beadonor.ca. More importantly, have the conversation with your family to let them know of your intention that you want to be an organ donor. These conversations can be difficult, but they are necessary. In our family, we recognize that we cannot take our organs with us and our tissues with us, so we are registered to be donors in the hopes that someone will benefit from transplantation. If you have not done so, please recognize Be a Donor Month and register to be a donor. We do not have to go into closed session. We don't have a public meeting, but we have a couple of delegations tonight. And at this point, I'm going to welcome Renee Hornick and Paul Sherbin from Aqua to present to us our fourth quarter reports for Lucan and Granton, and to also present the 2024 reports for both facilities. So welcome. It's great to see you, and I'll turn the mic over to you.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, and municipal staff. This evening, I will be presenting the fourth quarter of the operational reports for Lucan, WPCP, and the Granton RBC. For Lucan in November, there were multiple issues with blowers that led to lower than normal dissolved oxygen levels in the aeration tanks. Consequently, in December, the month average total ammonium nitrate was 6.6, the limit is 2.6. The monthly average loading the TAN was 10, and the limit is 4.4. These exceedings were reported to the MECP as non-compliance. Since the plant was outside the normal operating conditions, additional samples were taken from November 25th to December 13th. Multiple repairs were made to the blowers, including replacement of motor and bearings. SCADA program changes were made. In respect to the dissolved oxygen, the value was installed to relieve back pressure in the blower feed system. The dissolved oxygen has been remained stable since. For Lucan WPCP, there was one bypass on December 3rd, 2024 that was a result of a power failure that led to an electric failure of the filters. A total of 922 cubic meters of partially treated effluent was bypassed with secondary treatment and the UV disinfection achieved. The bypass was reported to the Spills Action Center and the filters were repaired that day. The Granton RBC had no major operational issues and non-compliance for the fourth quarter. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer at this time.
Hey, thank you very much. It's not often there is nothing reported on the Granton. Any questions or comments from council on what was presented? Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Paul. Just a quick question. With that bypass of the partially treated effluent, just I guess that got reported to the Spills Action Center, and was there any big impacts? Like, did it, have any fish kills, or was it a big cleanup involved with that, or just how did that go?
There was no issues when we did some extra sampling and there was no problems.
Any other comments or Councillor Regan?
Sorry, you did that, Paul, just for that very first part, just about the non-compliance with the oxygen levels. And that was it. And how was that resolved? And why did that happen?
That was due to multiple issues we had with the blowers.
Okay.
So we had some blower issues that they were going on and off. So it happened kind of at night. So we made one blower work into the other one. And soon as we lose the blower, we lose the DO. So we got that all straightened up and fixed up.
All right. Okay. All right. That's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Okay, I think everything. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Westman.
Yeah, I've always beaten this dead horse, but fats, oils and grease. How are we making out with that in Granton? Because I know there had been issues there before, but we're doing better there now, I think.
Yeah, I believe Jeff and them were looking into that. Maybe some possible grease traps. We did we can look, we're gonna go back, got some manholes and stuff, but at the RBC, it's been fine.
It's good. Any other comments? Okay, move on to the annual report then.
Thank you. For information only are the 2024 annual performance reports for Lucan Wastewater Treatment Plant and Collection System and the Granton Wastewater RBC and collection system. The annual reports are completed yearly for each of the township's sewage systems in acknowledgement of the system operational requirements and in accordance with the environmental compliance approval and consolidated linear infrastructure environmental compliance approval. All the information within the approvals have been documented in the annual report. I didn't want to go into details because it's there for you to read, so I'd be happy to answer any questions on those reports if you have any.
Okay, questions on the annual reports? Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a general question. We're going through the design for the upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant, and I just wanted to ask, since Aqua's operating that facility, is Aqua involved with the design of that, or are we as staff involving Aqua with that just to give that operational expertise?
Yes, it's very important to include the operating authority because we're the ones that operate the plant, and Jeff has involved us right from day one, and BM Ross, the engineers, they reach out to us when they have any questions or need any operational suggestions on things. So yes, we are heavily involved in the whole process.
Great, thank you. And just one other question, and it's referring to an item that's later on in Jeff's activity report, but since we have Aqua here, maybe it's touched on in the annual report. I just thought there was an energy demand project that we're working on with Aqua at the wastewater treatment plant, and can you just provide some more information about what that is and what that project is doing?
Yes, it's a great program that Aqua is implementing, and it's called Game Day. We're partnering with Voltis, which is a company that deals with energy. So what they do is they'll call us and they'll say, we need you to reduce energy if possible. And we run our generator, which we are required to test on a monthly basis anyway. And so we take that opportunity to run the generator, and then we go off the grid. And by going off the grid, we've reduced the load of energy, and that's very beneficial. Wastewater treatment plants are one of the highest consumption of energy. So and the best part of it is the township will receive some money back regarding this. So yes, we have to pay a little bit more for fuel, but we're using that fuel anyway to test the generators. So it's a very beneficial program, and even if you don't end up participating in it, for the fact that you were going to participate, you'll receive some funds for that. So it's a great program.
Great. Thank you for the information.
Yeah, and maybe just to follow up, because we did coordinate, a kind of a test. It'll be for 18 months. We'll do, it runs based on a summer program and a winter program. So we're going to do 2 summers in a winter. The hope is to, we'll reevaluate it at the end of, the 18 months, but the hope is, through with just a little bit of staff coordination through Aqua and coordinating our generator test, that we can generate a little bit of revenue for the wastewater treatment plant.
Any other questions on the annual report? Okay, well, thanks for coming in and delivering those. That was great. And we'll look forward to seeing you in a few months.
Thank you very much.
With that, if I can get a mover and a seconder to receive both annual reports for Lucan and Granton and the Q4 operational reports. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodges. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, up next, we've got our friends from Jacobs. And at this point, I'm going to ask, are you both going to come up? Oh, just Chris. The lead operator from Jacobs to deliver the 2024 annual water system report. So welcome, and I will turn it over to you, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you. Through the chair and to council, I mean, it's been a pleasure to redesign this annual report. I'm sure many of you have noticed it looks a little different than this previous years. And that was just based on some ministry directive, according to what they want to see and what level of detail they're looking to receive. So fairly straightforward as far as the annual report and its requirements. We did have one adverse water sample last year in July at the Lions Club, where we got a total coliform hit of 2, and I believe, of 2, the limit is 0. So it does generate an adverse. So we flushed, resampled, and got a clean bill of health. And other than that, it was pretty standard for the year. I mean, we've seen an increase in flows that we are using in the Lucan Biddulph distribution system, but we are monitoring those and making sure that we do stay within capacity of the booster station. So other than that, I don't have a whole lot. If you have questions.
Well, that is great. The increased flows, is that just due to a growing community, or what can we chalk that up to?
Yes, that is due to the growth that we've seen. We did have a few small leaks throughout the year, just water service leaks that have been repaired. It take a little bit to see those decreases, but they're quite minor in the grand scheme. So I will say that the increases are based on population growth and, business growth, which I've seen. So.
Like your report, the town has changed a bit. So, any other comments, Councillor Regan?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the report. I just got a couple of questions. First of all, the inspection, does that include the tower as well? And sorry.
So the ministry inspection, yes, so it does include the tower. So we did have a recommendation from the ministry this year to install an intrusion alarm at the Lucan Tower. So we've gotten quotes, and I believe Jeff and Andrew are kind of working towards getting that installed sooner rather than later.
Right. Okay, thank you. And I just have one other. So I just noticed too that there was one non-compliance just about drinking, the profile system not being updated. And I'm just wondering what steps we need to put in place to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yes, so that was definitely a management oversight issue at the time. Just, I mean, I'm sure many of you are aware that we've kind of gone through some manager turnover in recent years. And during the latest turnover, that system profile didn't get updated. So we've made sure to put it in our procedures and in our DWQMS. And as well as we've kind of made everybody aware that that needs to be updated. So it makes sure that staff and management are accountable, to have that completed within the 10 days. So hopefully we don't ever run into that again, because I know the ministry won't be overly pleased. So.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Good.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just with respect to the one adverse sample that we had, is that concerning at all, or does that happen from time to time? What are your comments on that?
From what I've seen in my time with water distribution systems, it happens. A lot of the times we have no clue why. It could just be a dirty tap. It could be you breathed funny in the room. It could be you stirred up a little bit of dust on a countertop. That's why those tests are there, and that's why we get put into action as soon as that adverse is seen by the lab. Just in case it is an issue. I mean, obviously in this case, we did our flushing, did a resample. Nothing came back. If we did have something come back, that would indicate that there is an issue somewhere, but like I said, these happen. I've seen them over and over. I think most water distribution systems see that at least one a year, just based on the number of samples that we are collecting.
Okay, thank you. And just with that, the MECP inspection, since there was just that one management issue, are you confident that next time around we'll be able to hit 100%?
Absolutely. We've taken that issue into the next level. My manager, and just making sure that's oversought by a higher level too, just to make sure that, they're double checking that we've completed that.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Any questions, comments? Okay, well, thank you for joining us. It was good to see you. Oh, Jeff, sorry. Yep.
Madam Mayor, if I just could just to kind of follow up on, I'm sure a lot of people maybe around here that have been around the water system understand the sampling. I just wanted to make sure that if anybody's watching, we do sample every week, and we take multiple samples throughout the town in different spots. So when we do find one sample, it's not, there's been multiple samples through the water system at that week period. So like if Chris said, if this was a repeat, or if there came from the same area, or if it came from the same sample, then we might have a concern. But because of the volume of sampling and the different spots that we sample at, gives us the security in that we are sampling properly and things are working in the system.
Appreciate that. Councillor Regan. Yeah. No.
Just a question. So Jeff, when you do the samples, who does the analysis of the samples?
Oh, so through the mayor, that is a Jacob's requirement to take the sampling, and then we deliver it. Our staff, Jacob's staff, deliver it to our lab in London, and I believe it's Chris can answer better, but it's an established lab that we've been using for a long time and have a working relationship with. But Chris can.
Yes, that is correct. We do use SGS laboratories out of London. Jacobs has been using them for over 30 years, so we do have a very good established relationship with them. So they're good to us. They let us know they've got hundreds of contacts with us.
All right. Great. Nope. Thank you. I just thought it was important to let us know who's doing it for us. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
All right. If there aren't any further questions or comments, thank you for coming in tonight. It was good to see you, and we'll see you, who knows, few months?
Yes, so moving forward, I am hoping to bring to council more of a quarterly update. Just to make sure that we are engaged still. You guys are aware of what's going on. I know that's been kind of lacking in recent years, so
No.
I'm here to make the change.
That's great.
So,
Well, we know that you've got a great relationship with Jeff, and we certainly appreciate that relationship. So even though you've been missed at council, we know that relationship is still a good working relationship, but it would be great to have you back on a more regular basis for sure. Okay, great. With that, I need a mover and a seconder to receive that the 2024 annual water system distribution report for information. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the minutes. We have one set of minutes in front of us from March 18th. If nothing needs to be amended or spoken to, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve those minutes as circulated. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman, all in favor, and that's carried. Business arising from the minutes. I believe some of them will be spoken to later in the council meeting. Was there anything that council wanted to add to business arising? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Not just comment. I noticed in the community news that the Huron Shores transit was in there. So it does say ongoing on there. So there's no as far as immediate threat of that ending then for the few users that are using it.
Sorry, through the mayor to the deputy mayor, not that I'm aware of yet. We, we have been in contact with Lambton Shores, who's kind of driving this whole thing.
Right.
We can,
Okay.
I can request a.
Because my
Status
only
report.
concern is again, we don't know it literally could be 10 people a week, July and August. I mean, 10 people a day, July and August only using it. It could be 3 people a week using it. Could have been a high number of people using it July, August, just going back to the bend. But my thing is, again, just communicating back before obviously with some notice, so we can put it on the sign or put it on the post and let people know. But it may not end.
So I do know that the province has allowed if transportation systems have any excess money left over from the money that they've received, they can spend it until March of 2026. So I don't know Lambton Shores financial situation, but it is creating that bridge while systems like Huron Shores, like Connect, like Tigo and all that, while they've got their requests in for that OSA funding, right? So,
And again, I just didn't know with us not participating, even while they're running, that they're going to pull our route or not, which was more of a concern. So just not a concern of more a concern of information.
residents.
Yeah, the residents.
But I think we can know that there's communication. Okay. Okay, if there's nothing to be added, then we'll move on to correspondence. There's been nothing pulled by staff. I just want to highlight the media release that was sent out by Middlesex County announcing the retirement of the CAO, Bill Rayburn. Bill Rayburn he's had an incredible career, not only with the county, but just as in administration. So from a Lucan Biddulph standpoint, we certainly congratulate him and thank him and wish him well on his next step. So is there any other items of correspondence that council wanted to speak to? Yep, Councillor Regan.
Number 6, just the Thames Valley Accommodation Plan. It's just more of it looks more like an email, but I guess my question is just for Ron are we ever approached by Thames Valley with respect to, like, when they talk about accommodation, talking about capital projects and talking about the programming and that sort of thing. And I know we're not in the education business, but I'm just wondering if are we ever consulted at all with respect to sort of like our growth or our, you know, our needs or anything like that? I'm just wondering if we have something we should be contacting our trustee about.
So through the mayor to through the mayor to Councilor
Working
Regan.
on it.
They do host an annual meeting at which our planners have been invited to. So they typically go and what they talk about is what's happening in each community. What's the future look like? What do they need to be prepared for? So I do think they do a very good job of that.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. That was it. Thanks.
I think that meeting is coming up, and I believe it'll be virtual. I can send you the link if you like to watch it. Okay. Councillor Hodgins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in I guess it's item 2 for the Middlesex County highlights. And looking at the budget highlights, I see the county has passed their budget with the 4.1% rate. And within that, I was just interested in seeing this this funding to establish a dedicated housing advocate position. And it's under social services, but I'm not sure if you are aware, but is this position to sort of help with the housing accelerator fund and like housing targets and that sort of thing? Or is it more for like social housing since it's under social services? Is that something that we're going to potentially use, or I guess do you have any insights on that?
No, it's more social service related. But that being said, I can probably direct you to the council meeting. I don't think I was at and you didn't go to the budget meeting, no. I believe it was a business case that was presented at the budget meeting. That's when I was on leave. And it was part of a broader approach to supportive housing and that sort of thing. But it came with a huge price tag. And anyways, council decided, let's start with this. It's my understanding that this position will work with the community navigator and try to, come up with business cases to maybe look at how the county can play more of a role when it comes to supportive housing. But I can certainly get more information on that for you too. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, were there any other items of correspondence? Okay, with that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to accept those items for information purposes, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. On to committee reports. Blue Water.
Nothing to report.
CEDC.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Lake Huron, nothing to report. Fire boards, you've got 2 sets of minutes from meetings that have been held. And of course, those are for your information. Okay. If there's any questions. ABCA.
Nothing to report.
Parks and Recreation.
We're meeting May 15th and I'll have a report after that. Okay.
On to staff reports. Ron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first report of the 2 I have today or tonight is in regards to the wind power generation. It's basically an information report. It outlines what the process is as of today. It's quite different than what it was when windmills, I shouldn't say windmills. That's an old term. Wind turbines is the term we use today. But when wind turbines first came into play about approximately 12 years ago, the process was quite different. Now, I think the bottom line to the report is that without the municipal council support, a project will not proceed. And so, that's all to say. There's all these reports that they have to do. It's a very lengthy process. The process is one where you have to apply, or an applicant would have to apply for and I think the application's open in the fall. And it almost takes a year for that permit to go through the process of approval, and then they find out, and then it's a construction. process if everything is in order. So it's quite a lengthy process. It's a very involved process. There's public meetings involved. There's discussions with Indigenous communities that have to happen, and discussions with the municipality. So it's quite involved. It's quite different. So at this point in time, I think that's the information I can give council. I won't, bore you with. There's different classes, there's different sizes, and there's it is quite a lengthy process to go through. I've included the flow chart, which kind of indicates the steps involved. And happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor Mander.
Just for clarity, we are, our municipality, or what's our stance on it right now? We are an accepting community for.
So through the mayor to the deputy mayor, we don't have an official stance at all.
Okay.
So I think, I think there are other communities that maybe have taken a proactive stance and said, no, we don't want any of these. However, I think you're doing a disservice, because at some point, if this is an application that comes before the community, before the municipal council, that means that there are some of your ratepayers that do want this. So I think it's important to go in with an open mind and hear what people want, because right now, I don't know necessarily that Lucan Biddulph residents, we don't know as a council what they want.
No.
Because we haven't gone through that.
I would suspect the ones that want it on their property want it, and I expect the neighbors beside them don't. Like anything, like whether it be an apartment building or a turbine, and we represent both sides of that. So I just didn't. So right now, we don't have any stance on it.
Correct. So
We're
at
not-
this point in time, I think if there was an application to be brought forward, I think the municipality is a commenting agency, no different than anybody else. So whoever the proponent would be, would host the public meetings, and we would simply be in the background and listen to what they have to say, listen to the public input, and then at the end of that process is the time that council would make a decision, yes or no.
Sure.
So
Thank you.
I think we're very well situated with the rules that are in place right as today.
Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just, just generally over the next, 20 years or so, Ontario's got to increase its output by 75%. So it's an opportunity, but I guess what would be interesting for us is we're thinking about, opportunities for income for the municipality with respect to, fees for bylaw fees, development charges. And I'm just wondering, it would be interesting to find out if I don't think we have any of that in place now, but I'm just wondering down, when we decide whether or not we're supportive or not of this, and we do have that veto, but I'm just wondering about having those things in place. Like, it is an opportunity, and it's maybe the way of the future, I guess. But they've changed in the last, they've been around for 20 some odd years. And originally when they started, there were many, many concerns. And a lot of those concerns are by the wayside now with respect to, the effects of wind turbines. But I'm just wondering, again, just as a municipality, to be prepared for this coming down the pipe about what kinds of fees we could charge, and again, opportunities for income for the municipality. Just a comment.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for the information report, Ron. So I think this discussion, or this came about from some rumors or chatter about some people hearing about some, I don't know if they're even proposals or just talk about wind turbines in our area. So in the report, it says that there's a requirement to consult with municipalities, and you mentioned it, Aboriginal communities and the public. So has the township been consulted at all with this officially yet?
At this point, no, not officially. And that's the key. We've I want to choose my words wisely. I think we've all heard the rumors and the things that are out there. There has not been an application, and that's sort of the what's the word? The turn in the road, if you want to call it that. Until we actually get an application, it's just information at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, thanks for that, Ron. Can I get a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information, please? Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, declaration of surplus land.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The second report is exactly that. We have been talking for a number of meetings now with regards to the surplus land that we intend to look at disposing on Nick Line. That requires a motion of council to formally declare it as surplus to our needs. And that is in accordance with our, what's the name of the bylaw now? The property disposition bylaw number 47 that we passed in 2017. So there is a requirement to formally make a motion to declare that surplus before we can actually sell it. So I was talking to the mayor earlier today, the smart thing that the municipality did back in the day was it was a 20-meter wide lot and it was intended to be used for a road access. But at the time, we didn't formally declare that as a road, as an unopened road allowance. And that's a good thing, because if that had been declared as a road allowance, even though it's unopened, there's a whole different set of requirements that need to be used before we could officially dispose of that. So we are fortunate in that, some forethought, we didn't formally declare it a road allowance. It is just a parcel of property, no different than anything else. But prior to a municipality being able to sell it, we need to formally have a motion of council to declare it surplus to our needs. So in the background of the report today, we talk about the fact that we do have an RFP out there soliciting bids for that parcel. Council has already seen the bids for the moving of the infrastructure that's in that 20-meter wide span. So we've got that number. Now we need to know what people are willing to pay for that. And so the recommendation is that we have a special council meeting on the 25th of April to review those bids. And in order to stay within the the expiry date of the bids to move the infrastructure, we need to a motion of council to award the tender at that point in time. So if things are in a perfect world, we'll get X dollars for the lot. Council's satisfied with that number, whatever it is, less the servicing, the moving of the infrastructure to service the lot. If that number meets council's approval, then you'd basically award the bid. You'd also award the contract to move the infrastructure, and we can move forward.
Questions or comments on this staff report? Councillor Hodgins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So looking at the RFP form, so we've decided to go with this RFP, which isn't, I guess, just looking at bids, but it's looking at proposals. So 70% of it is based on the price, 30% based on the intended use of the property and the timeline. And I just wanted to get maybe some more or some comments just on the rationale for that. And I guess through this process and the RFP and awarding it, can we hold them to that intended use and timeline? I'm just thinking of a scenario where maybe we don't take the highest price and we award it based on this intended use, and things might not go to plan. So maybe just some background.
So we did. So Josh White at the county, the procurement officer, was very instrumental in helping us put together this RFP, and many thanks to him as well. We did run it by our solicitor, David Woodward's office as well, with regards to the 3-year, because that was a comment made at the previous one that we want something done within 3 years. We don't want it just sitting there either. And the scoring method was basically arrived at because it's not, I don't think council's intent is to see you know, a 4-unit townhouse in there, sort of shoved sideways. So the proposal needs to talk about what they're going to build in there as well. Okay.
So follow up, is it clear to the those who would be submitting proposals what the evaluation criteria is? Like, do they know, I guess, what the preferred, you know, what the township wants to see? Or I guess, how is that going to be judged? Because normally you'd have, you know, this is the evaluation criteria and you know, what is the preferred thing that's going to score the highest points, I guess? Is that known or?
Well, yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Hodgins, I think we have to be very careful, and I think Josh is very aware of how much we can sort of guide. So I think that's why it's scored the way it is. To sort of tweak them that, okay, it's not just price here. They want to see something. So what is that? So it generates a question to Lisa or Jeff or myself or Darcy, whoever, you know, gets that question. And then we can say, well, you know, council is really looking for something that's going to fit in the neighborhood. They don't want something that the neighbors are going to be upset with and everything else. They are looking for something that can fit. Now, legally, that's, I don't know if I'm looking at Lisa DeBoer here, but I don't know if our lawyer came up with any wording that we could insert that's enforceable. You know, so I think we can try and guide them in that direction. But at the end of the day, you know, I think you have to take somebody at their word. And hopefully, what we're trying to tell people is show council a picture of what you want to put on there. Picture's worth 1,000 words. So, you know, show us.
Yep. And sorry, a couple more questions. Is the evaluation team, and I'm glad to hear, you know, you mentioned that we're working closely with the county's procurement team and our legal services. And I think that's important and that's good. The evaluation team, is that staff? Is that council? Is it a combination of some, or has that been established?
Yeah, I don't know that we've formally established that, but I guess I foresee Josh, the county procurement officer, number one, a couple of staff members and probably at least one, if not two, council members. Because we do have a fairly tight turnaround time on this, so we kind of want to get everybody facing the same direction for that special meeting on the 25th.
Okay, thanks for all that information and yeah, recognizing the tight turnaround, and just, I think I'm thinking through some hypothetical scenarios here and just kind of, and I'm sure staff and the rest of the team has thought about that. Another one would be, I guess, you know, the neighboring property owners, say on either side of this parcel, they want it to remain as it is, and maybe they jointly submit and to have nothing go there. And I'm, you know, I guess, how would that score?
That's an interesting that's an interesting thought, because technically,
Should we
if
be
it,
discussing that now?
well, I can do whatever.
Well,
It might happen. I guess that's a possibility. So we'll have to wait and see what kind of proposals we do get.
Okay, thank you for all the answers.
hey, any other questions or comments on that? Okay. With that, can I get a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information? And further, that council deems part lot 10, plan 210 in the township of Lucan Biddulph on Nicolline Avenue as surplus to the municipal needs of the township of Lucan Biddulph. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried with one opposed. Did you have anything verbal, Ron?
Just one, just a bit of an update. The staff met with the Ministry of Infrastructure officials this afternoon online at 1 o'clock to talk about our Housing Accelerator Fund round 2. The fact that we didn't get any money, you know, we wanted to have a debrief, I guess, and that's what they called this this online meeting.
Housing accelerators, the federal. It's the federal.
Yes,
We got that.
sorry. Housing Enabling Water System Fund round 2. There's, yeah. Catherine and I were just saying today, there's way too many out there right now, but so we did have a discussion online. It was exactly like Catherine and I had suspected before we went in, is that they really couldn't give us any constructive criticism. They said it was a great application. Ticked all the boxes off, but it was way oversubscribed and we just didn't make it. So there wasn't a whole lot of feedback. Just keep trying. The good news is that the election platform that for the provincial election that was just finished, supposedly there's another, what do you say, $2 billion, I think. $2 billion program that they want to keep going with this infrastructure funding program. So we'll just keep, we just got to keep trying. So.
Great. Thank you for that. Any questions for Ron? Okay, Tina.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Tonight we just have a report in front of you to present a draft updated procedural bylaw. The procedural bylaw is a tool that governs how council members carry out the business of the municipality in accordance with the Municipal Act. It was recently updated in 2020 to incorporate provisions required to facilitate meetings electronically during a declared state of emergency, which we're all familiar with. In an effort to ensure consistency with legislation and encourage modernization, staff has undertaken a review of the existing bylaw. We have used some precedents from our neighbors to kind of compare. And instead of updating our existing bylaw, chose to just kind of start from fresh to modernize the whole bylaw itself. There are a number of changes and a number of new provisions. I will go through just a couple of things to note under the actual agenda format, which is section 4.2.4 of the bylaw. So there's a couple of headings that we are removing. One of them being the business arising. So we're not actually removing that chart. It's just going to be moved to a new heading, the other business category. So it will remain and will continue to track things, but it will be under that heading where other business can also be discussed. We also are removing the changes to budget field. I discussed that with Ron, and I've never seen that field used since I've been here. Ron has in his time. But it is something now that is brought forward more in staff reports. So there would be a formal staff report and motion needed when there's a change to the budget. Another field we're removing is the motions and accounts paid field. So it's not that those items will be removed, just that header in itself, and they will form under a new header called the consent agenda. So the consent agenda is a new item, and the purpose of it is to include, it's a tool used to streamline the meeting procedures and collect routine, non-controversial items within that heading. So as an example, our Middlesex County highlights, our Middlesex London Health Unit updates, routine staff reports, or any other newsletters would be contained under consent agenda, and we're still going to keep correspondence, and that will include resolutions. Now with both, even though the consent agenda, everything that's within there will be received and adopted through one motion. If there is an item in there that council would like to pull for discussion, they do have that ability to do that. Same thing as we do similarly right now with correspondence. You do have the option to pull an item for discussion. So those are kind of the big things that are changes to the procedural bylaw. A lot of the other stuff is already standard as to what's in there currently. One thing I would note that even though the bylaw says, for instance, delegates are limited to a time limit of 10 minutes for their presentation. That's in there as a tool to use. You know, we might have 3 delegations in one meeting, but it's always at the discretion of the chair. So just because it says 10 minutes doesn't mean that the delegation can't go for 15 minutes. But it is a tool to use if we need to keep them to a 10-minute time frame. We can do that. So tonight it's just being brought forward for information. It's for council to kind of review and digest. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to staff In the meantime, and the hopes is that we bring it back at the next meeting for formal adoption. And then we'll test it out. And if later on this year, we're finding that something's not working, we can revisit it. But the consent agenda is something that all municipalities in our county are using. So it's something that just to remain consistent and more people are doing, just kind of modernizing it and going forward with that. So if any questions, I will try and answer.
Okay, thanks, Tina. Certainly, thank you for all your work putting this together. It's quite a change, that's for sure, and you've been working on it for quite some time. So I would, I'm gonna open it up for questions too, but take Tina up on her offer. Like if there's more in depth that you've got some questions about, have the conversation with Tina to kind of walk through the changes. I do think the biggest change will be the consent part of the consent agenda. I think that will take some learning on all of our behalf. I know that a number of the boards that I sit on, it's very traditional now to have that in there. So as Tina said, it's kind of modernizing how we're doing business, but you will never, ever not be able to speak to anything on the agenda. So Councillor Regan.
Thank you so much, Tina, for that. Thank you for attempting to streamline our meetings. Always appreciate it. So when I was reading through this, I guess my concern would be when I read things like routine, collecting routine and non-controversial items. So what might be controversial to me might not be to someone else. So again, I'm just concerned about what that process is and who makes that determination. Who decides what's controversial and what isn't, and what's routine and what isn't.
So currently now I'll use correspondence as an example. We receive items and between Ron and myself, the clerk's department, we kind of decide whether that's the balance of the correspondence or we think it's something that should be pulled. It would be the same with consent agenda. If it's an item that we think needs to be separated, we would do so, and council also would have that ability. Anything that's on the consent agenda, you do have the ability to pull it as a separate item.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's it's a staff and the mayor and staff. And
Yeah, it starts with at staff's discretion. Sometimes an item can come to the mayor and she forwards it to staff to include in the agenda. And if she specifically says, I'd like this for discussion, we can do that. We do that. But otherwise, yes, it is at staff's discretion.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Tina, for the
Any-
report.
Any other comments or questions right now? Okay. All right, then the motion in front of us is just to receive that report for information. So mover and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Did you have anything verbal, Tina?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Finance, Catherine.
Thank you. The report I have tonight is just to present the temporary borrowing bylaw for consideration and adoption. And this is for the fiscal year 2025. And so it's best practice to enact a bylaw such as this each year, even if the municipality doesn't intend to use it. The bylaw will be in effect for the duration of the fiscal year or until the taxes are collected and other revenue received. So basically, it's just a cash flow management tool that the township can then quickly act on if the need arises. But this, in my history, I have not had to use the temporary borrowing bylaw. I don't anticipate having to use it for 2025. It's just best practice to have this in your toolbox to use. And it's also something that the audit team looks for each year and sees it as and recommends having the bylaw as best practice. So this will be moved to a bylaw that we bring forward at the beginning of the year, each year. But I just wanted to provide a background report to give more information at this time. So any questions, let me know.
Okay, thank you for this, Catherine. This is usually a routine bylaw that comes, but I appreciate you giving us the background. Because sometimes it's a good reminder as to why we have the background, and certainly for anybody watching council, it gives an understanding of why the bylaw comes to us anyways. So are there any questions or comments on that anyways from council? Councillor Hodgins?
I was just going to echo your comments, Madam Mayor. Just thanks for the information and a little bit of education around the temporary boring bylaw. Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks for that, Jaden. Okay, if there isn't anything, then can I get a mover and a seconder to receive that report and then give direction that we will adopt the temporary bylaw, and that is actually in our bylaws later on in the meeting. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, anything verbal? Nothing? Public Works, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two reports. The first one is a report on video surveillance at the Public Works garage. I won't go over exactly what the report, it touches on the benefits of the surveillance, but I just wanted council to understand why I'm bringing this forward. We've talked about the green waste that comes into the yard there, and that we've been trying to control commercial dumping, items that we do not want dumped there. We end up getting having to pick through it and putting stuff into the garbage or emptying garbage bags and that sort of thing. So one of the things we have talked at council, and council did bring it up, what would be the benefits, or would there be some benefits of video surveillance on the green waste site? So having said that, I did talk to a company, and one of the offshoots would then be, if we put a system in at the Public Works garage, we could also use it for surveillance at the gates, for actually security reasons of people coming and going on during off hours. We can also do surveillance on the fuel tanks in case there's any sort of issue. That's one of the things that does happen at Public Works garages, that fuel can get stolen during the night. So it does give us that ability, and it also too gives us the ability to just be able to see what's going on if there was ever some sort of problem that arose on the grounds of the Public Works facility. It does give a recording of that, and we can go back and review that. It's kind of like, you don't really know that you need it until you actually need it, sort of situation. So I just wanted council, in some of the quote that I started getting, it looks like somewhere in the neighborhood of about $6,000 for a system to be installed. It does not, we're not looking for somebody to monitor it or have a monthly fee included with that. That's a one-time installation fee for the installation of the cameras and the server that would record the information. I would also just say that I'm looking for a little bit of direction from council on whether they believe it's a good idea to have some surveillance there. But I would work with with Darcy on more of a system that would integrate through the municipality. So before I went out and got a system, I would actually, Darcy and I have been talking about it, that we would integrate maybe a system that could be used at different facilities throughout the municipality, so it's all coordinated. So I did want to say that before I installed something, we would look at that. So, but I'd open up for questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff. Comments, Councillor Westman?
Yeah, I think it's probably a very good idea to have video surveillance out there, because significant assets out there, and there are some features out there that would be good to monitor. Jeff's comment about making it integrated, and it needs to be completely in the control of the municipality, so that any data collected is purely the property of the municipality, so that there's no issues. Now, I would understand that senior managers would have the ability to monitor and, access the cameras for if they get an alert or whatever. So, I think I think it's a great idea because we do have a lot out there. And just the cost of any commercial dumping out there would certainly justify the need for that.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments from council? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Yeah, I'm in favor of monitoring any of our assets on behalf of the taxpayer, but also I'm commend you on not getting into something with monthly fees. Thank you. Or yearly fees. Thank you. But can our buy, like to Councillor Westman's point, if there is commercial dumping, or do our fines reflect, someone being caught to deter that also? Or is it a case where they smile at the camera and they don't care? So, or, will this be something maybe our staff will now look at our fines, that the cost of someone abusing any of this, like any of your deterrency listed there, can our bylaw officer then, can he review that and go place a fine, I guess, is my one question. And secondly, I would hope if staff feels that our fines aren't covering the costs of the damage being done, or cost them, it's cheaper for them to do that and break and get fined, I would hope we'll adjust our fines. So I guess one question on that.
Yeah, it's a good question. It is a very difficult thing, and when we talk about fining, but my main goal here is to stop the dumping itself. The idea is that if we do get a commercial dumping on a regular basis, that we can reach out to them and get it stopped. But fining and that would be something I would have to bring back to council on, because to issue fines and try to take this to court, that's a whole nother ball game. So I'm not really instigating this to try to bring bylaw into the aspect of it. I will, I relate this back to dumping on the side of the road. We have a fine for dumping garbage on the side of the road. But really, what we really want to do is open up the garbage and confront the person that dumped the garbage and ask them to pick the garbage back up, is really the goal of some of this stuff. So I'm not sure I can say that we would get our money back on fining, on fines with this to the deputy mayor. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I guess with that, I'm all in favor of that, protecting our assets 100%, and integrating that system. My concern, and just sort of along with the bylaws for fees, for fines, but just the policy in place about what happens if your phone goes off. I don't know how comfortable I am with staff driving over to the yard and stopping people. So there should be, for health and safety, a policy in place with respect to what happens. That phone goes off, you see somebody doing something. I don't know if I want staff going out there and confronting the person. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it's a safety issue, I think. I mean, and not that, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just not sure if something like that needs to be in place as well. Like if you're having video surveillance, like I said, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and somebody's doing something they shouldn't be doing. I mean, again, those cameras are deterrents for sure. You have the big red sign saying, smile, you're on camera or whatever. But I'm just wondering what happens if, that triggers you off on your phone, and what do you do after that?
Yeah. So through the mayor. So, if there was a trigger at 2 o'clock in the morning, I would hope that it's more about a theft or a break and enter that we're dealing with. If it's someone dropping off a commercial load of grass, it is recorded. We can go back. It's documented what time, and then go back and see exactly that. I don't think the idea is to go out and confront people on yard waste at 2 o'clock in the morning. But if it's a theft or a break-in or something like that, then we would call the police and go from there.
As long as people knew that, right? So, yeah. Important. Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Then we do have a motion in front of us to receive the report and that council direct staff to install a video surveillance system to enhance security for the Public Works Garage. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Your activity report, Jeff?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I really wasn't going to, it's pretty basic. Everything's there. I was just going to open up for comments, although I did notice I did leave out one piece of information. So I will talk about the drainage section. So that drainage section actually is about the Nagel drain. The Nagel is not actually included in the description there. So the Nagel drain is taking place just off the Roman line, and it has gone to tender and it has been awarded by council. Before that went to tender, though, the MTO had asked us to delay any work in the road allowance till the following year because they did not want cross working of different construction projects. However, after the tender was released and we awarded it, MTO then came back to us and said, we actually would like it done before we start our construction project because of any road settlement with the bore that goes across Highway 4. We would be able to catch it with the new pavement that would go down. So having said that, we talked to Spreetz, and they did say that they could issue a very quick type quotation for boring under Highway 4. It would not. It was very limited to the people that are out there, and it has to happen very quickly. So we contacted the MTO because they are the payer of that bill because it's all to do with Highway 4. And they said, as long as we can get it done before their construction and it comes within the budgeted amount that was estimated at, they were happy to get it done basically kind of on the fly. So having said all that, we arranged that and we're getting that done. I just wanted council aware that that little section was not going out to a proper open tender. It was kind of a closed quotation that we're asking. That's a little bit off, one off, but because of the MTO agreeing to the payment and the timing on it, I think it's appropriate to be done.
Okay. Thank you for that, Jeff. Appreciate it. Any questions or comments on Jeff's activity report? Deputy Mayor.
Just one thing that got my attention, Jeff, was the water service leak at Arvis Spring. That appears to me like new infrastructure. What were your thoughts on that? Or am I correct? I think that's fairly new. I'm just thinking wouldn't be the only pipe that would be an issue, or is that?
Yeah, it was right through the mayor. The water leak was right at the water service. So it was the connection between, it wasn't the new water main that went in, it was the connection at the water service itself. And not to get into a lot of detail, but there was a fitting that had to be, that let go, on that water service adapter.
Okay, no, it's good to know. Thank you.
Any other comments on Jeff's activity report? Okay, seeing none, if I can get a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins, all in favor? And that's carried. Are there any questions for Jeff? I actually have one for you, if you don't mind, just given that we had both Aqua and Jacobs here tonight. Just wondering when those contracts come up for renewal, because I know we've had the discussion that we might look at combining the two of them. And that's not going to be that's not going to be a small process. Even in going out to tender, even separately, it's going to be a process. So just wondered what sort of timeline we might be looking at.
Yeah, Madam Mayor. So we did align the two existing contracts to come to an end at the end of next year, so 2026. There was a little bit of a jockeying, and we did have to arrange to make sure that the two of them came to an end. So the idea is to start early next year with preparing some sort of, our RFP type of deal. And I certainly will come back in budget time this fall and outline that process, because we'll definitely need some help, consulting help, developing that with all the ins and outs of a very detailed an agreement that's going to have to be made there. So I see it as a long process next year to put that out. And we got to give everybody a warning so that if someone is not following up, then they need to know. And if someone is taking on more business, they also need to bring on more staff. Having said all that, I want to make sure that it's clear that we'll still look at the options available of keeping it separate, bringing it together. There's all sorts of different options that I think I can bring back to council to make sure that there's, some sort of decision as we move forward next year.
Just on that, if the contracts are done at the end of 26, starting the process at the beginning of 26, is that in fact enough time?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, but my hope is if we get the budgets in place in the fall and we can get this moving first thing in the new year, with the idea that council, I mean, I can start bringing reports on how we want to move forward to council and get an idea of the direction we're moving, but the physical outline of it, we can start in January once we've got budgets approved.
Madam Mayor, I was just gonna add, it's mostly about communication, so we have to keep both Jacobs and Aqua involved, knowing what we're trying to do. So I think it's a matter of just making sure they understand what we're doing, when we're doing it, and everything else. So.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. Yep.
And just the final comment, the good news is that there is options available to put something out there and get a proposal back. I certainly don't have any complaints with what Jacobs have done, and I certainly don't have any complaints with what Aqua done. They can bring different items to the table. So I think that it does benefit us to really examine what we want in Lucan Biddulph.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, Parks and Recreation, Darcy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My first report is on the pool opening and program enhancements. With the new facility and the new pool, and speaking to staff, this being my second summer, I did come up with some different ideas that we could to promote, and I wanted to throw them to council. So I did go into depth, into a little bit of detail in my report, but the three things that we're kind of looking to do is the library pool pass lending program, which we feel will be great access to the pool and will be a good partnership with the library. To approve an early opening date, I know that's something that's been kind of brought up here and there, but I wanted to get official approval that we would open up on June 7th, which would give us an extra month of pool use, and to reinstate the lifeguard training incentive. Now that was brought up at PRAC. You've probably seen it in the PRAC minutes. I'm bringing it to council, talking to staff. It is something that was used and was great. This year, we don't see it as a big benefit because we do have a lot of returning staff. But that being said, when we have a lot of returning staff, there's always the future in the next couple of years of trying to need staff. So this might be a good way to promote getting staff and keeping the pool staffed, because that's always a issue at times. So those are my three things that I would like to bring. I'm gladly taking any questions.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Darcy. Questions or comments on this? Deputy Mayor Manders.
I have a little concern on the early opening of the pool, just from a cost standpoint, obviously. But just a comment I did want to make. And secondly, obviously you have staff that can head lifeguards or whatever you need to accomplish that this year. So I guess I certainly hope that obviously that this is flexible. I mean, in future years, if they couldn't start till July 1st or traditional opening, that you would just make the call with the staff and availability at the time. If you had no head lifeguards that could start, then I assume the date would be changed. But that's the only reason for this coming forward, is because this year you happen to.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons we brought it forward is because this year we do have staff. I think that would be, if it worked, this will be kind of an experimental year. If it worked, I think that would be our goal. I come from a place that we did open June and we were always able to find the staff. You open on evenings, weekends. I have had great success with evening lessons in June, and that's where we want to do 2 weeks of evening lessons the last 2 weeks of June. They're usually the most registered because they are most convenient for people before sports get too crazy and they're off work and that. So especially with the new heater, I don't see huge expense. And I think the revenue will mostly offset that. Obviously, this year is going to be experimental and we'll see how the community jumps on it. But I feel I will obviously bring a report back at the end of the summer saying this is what happened. This is what I think we should do next year. But I feel that it's worth a shot for this year.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Any other comments? Councillor Hodgins?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks for the report, Darcy. I just wanted to say, I think it's a great idea, the partnership with the library for the pool passes. I think we have heard from the community once about those kind of financial barriers. So I think that's a great innovative approach, and I hope it's well used. Thank you.
You know, that is a cool program, I think. Very good. If there aren't any other comments, then we do have a recommended motion in front of you to receive the report and approve the library pool pass lending program, to approve the early opening date of June 7th, and to reinstate the lifeguard training incentive. Mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? All opposed? Yeah, well, I didn't know. Okay. Well, I didn't know. Anyways, thank you. All right, continue. Darcy?
Okay, my next one is the clothing allowance policy. This is basically to align the Parks and Rec with the Public Works. And our last one, our safety clothing allowance was different between Parks and Rec and Public Works. And I think in the past, when it was mostly arena in that area, we didn't have as much roadside work. We didn't have as much health and safety expenses. But now I feel that we're fairly aligned with what the Public Works does and what the Parks and Rec do. And I just feel that it would be worthwhile right now to align it. And I'm asking to retroactive back to January 1st so that anyone that has made expenses would get paid the same amount for all of 2025.
Thank you for that. Any comments or questions on this one? Councillor Regan?
Thank you very much, dear. Thank you. Thank you. Darcy, do we have any idea what the cost is at all?
Yeah, so there is an attachment to my report that
Okay,
has it
sorry.
listed. Sorry, I
Got
just
it.
didn't pull it up.
Okay.
But it's it's $300. Oh no, $500, sorry. $500 per calendar year for both Public Works and Parks and Rec.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Yes, thanks. Sorry, I missed that. Sorry, that's my fault.
Okay, you're okay with that,
I'm okay.
Councillor?
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Any other comments from council? Okay, then you've got a recommended motion to receive that report and to approve the proposed changes to the clothing allowance, retroactive to January 1st. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, digital sign.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yeah, for the options for the digital sign, this was brought up at the last council meeting I was at, and I said I would come back with some options. I did speak to another local sign company. They came back with a second option. Obviously, I've listed 3 options in my report. One is to basically replace the sign as is. So it would be the same monochrome red lettering sign. Option 2 would be the full color sign. And option 3 would be just to decommission, remove the existing sign. I did provide attachments in my report that shows the quote as well as some pictures of what the sign would look like. This new is using all the existing posts and the existing sign, but just putting the new digital sign in place. So I am recommending that we go with option 2 with the full color. I think for the amount of money extra it is, I think we would get the value out of the full color for what we want to advertise as a Parks and Rec division. But I'll gladly take any questions and suggestions from council.
Thank you for that, Darcy. Comments on this report. Councillor Westman.
Yeah, I think I would be in favor of the full color sign because it gives us a little more flexibility for advertising and different types of messaging. And it also, we put a lot of money and effort into upgrading the arena and making it look good. And then the color sign would certainly be a great accent on that. So I'd be in favor of the second option.
Okay, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor Manders.
So yeah, I was the one that brought it up, but you did a lot of work, so I appreciate that. But I was bringing it up from a standpoint of decommissioning it or plugging it in, more or less, or or little cost to plug it back in and work. So again, for all of us here around the horseshoe, I mean, it's been 3 years and not working. None of us brought it forward for a project to do during budget deliberations. None of us. We've all drove by it. You realize you had an unworking sign during operations. I just simply I don't want to pre-spend or delete our reserves for this. I'm not opposed to it, but I want to debate it more at budget with the list of items Parks and Rec wants to do next year. That's all. I really want to stay, again, it's a fair bit of money. Again, it's pushing close to 1% on our tax, a tax rate increase. Where we did a 4.4% increase. This was not part of any discussion. And I just think this should be part of the list for next year to be discussed if at that time. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Regan.
No, I concur with the deputy mayor. I think it's a great idea to do it. When we've got a sign out here that mostly advertises, library, council meetings, something for we've put a lot of money into the community center and a sign there, but I really think what we need to do is we put that on that wish list. We prioritize that for budget committee for 2026 is what I think we should do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments? Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to ask, with it being a fairly significant dollar amount, I wanted to ask about the procurement because we got some quotes or some pricing here, but would we put this out for when the time comes for quotes, or are we looking at going to this supplier in particular?
So we would, as the procurement bylaw, have to get 3 quotes. I do have 2. I talked about the first one in mind that's much higher. So I've already put out to one company just to make sure that there's not something I'm missing. I haven't heard back from them, but I wanted to bring it to council right away so that we could address it. But yeah, there would be a 3 quote. And even if we were to do it in next year, it would be a 3 quote from 3 local companies.
Okay, thanks for that. And just another comment. The existing sign, when it was operational, it was really bright. And if you notice it at night, it like kind of makes that whole area, red. That was with I guess the monochrome red lighting. So I think that's something when we're looking at these options and maybe talking with suppliers, something that we should look at. I'm sure we've all seen it in other areas where signs are excessively bright, like in cities. You come across those sometimes and it's just like, wow, that's really bright. So I just, maybe something to look at with the suppliers when the time comes as the brightness, just to make sure it's not too bright. And looking at the 2 options, the red monochrome versus the more digital sign, I'm just thinking about the digital sign, depending on how it works, like if it's almost like a TV screen and how it displays, I'm just, I guess, a little bit concerned about it causing distractions with drivers. It is a bit of we've talked about this location, just with the crosswalk, there's a lot going on. Vehicles are traveling fast. So I just think that's another important consideration that we should have with this. Depending on what is on those displays, we probably want to keep it simple, something that's not drawing drivers' attention away from the task of driving. So just another consideration. But just kind of further to Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan's points, I do agree, it is a big cost, and I think it's maybe something that we do evaluate through the budget process.
Okay, that's it. Okay, thank you, Councillor Hodgins. So I like the idea of keeping the sign. I was fortunate enough to be part of the project to put the sign in. But I do agree with the deputy mayor. It isn't something that we have brought up over and over again. So I would like to see this as part of the budget process. And we can put it in projects to consider. So that's my thinking. I like option two. I do like the idea of option two, but to Councillor Hodgins' point, I'm gonna have to be a little bit more mindful of what that sign looks like as I drive through the city and whatnot, but yeah. And thank you for your work on it though, Darcy, appreciate it. Councillor Regan, did you have another comment?
If I may. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering, Darcy, do we explore any options with respect to sponsorship of this?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have not at this point.
I'm just
Looked into
wondering.
that, I'm not saying, but it is labeled by the minor hockey and Lions Club right now as they were the funds. They produced the funds to put it in originally, but I haven't done it. Like as far as putting someone's logo on, I haven't done that at all.
Right. Okay, just an option, I think.
Right, are there any other comments? So there is a recommended motion in front of us. But I would maybe look to council, just given some of the comments that have been around. That maybe we just received the report for information. Oh, okay, were you going to just receive? it
Yeah,
for-
I'm not interested in taking it down after seeing his
No.
report and seeing the value, maybe the infrastructure there, and just become part of the list we debate next year. Yes, so for information only. Yep.
It should be noted that the sign was paid for by Lucan Minor Hockey and the Lions Club, but the actual standards were donated by Rostenberg. So, yeah. Okay, so you'll just make the motion to receive it, and did you want to, I'm gonna put words in your mouth, but to bring it back up during budget discussion, just so maybe it doesn't get lost?
Yeah, if Catherine starts we seem to always, at the time of budget, get that email saying, think in the next 3 weeks, and you might see me making more comments like this in the future. So again, I don't think the list can start too soon. And again, for any department, I just think we need to be more mindful than in those 2 weeks we get asked, or we need to right now start, creating the list. So I'd like Catherine to start that list now. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. So moved by the deputy mayor and seconded by Councillor Regan. Just make my note. Okay, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, and 269 Main Street.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So this was again brought up as a action item. Have been looking into some ideas of what we could do with 269 Main Street in the meantime while we plan for the long term. So in that and talking to staff, I think the best option would be to go to RFP. I did, it was a little bit late, but it did make the council agenda as a draft RFP, and I sent it out to council of what that RFP might look like. Again, that's just draft. We're not quite finalized, but I don't see too many big changes. I have been working very closely with Middlesex procurement on designing that and getting that ready to go. So I will say I've already got a lot of local interest just from word of mouth of people hearing that this might be a possibility. So there definitely is some interest. I definitely think there will be some proposals come in. So I think that would be my recommendation as staff is to go ahead with the RFP and go from there. The dates I think are doable. That was on the draft RFP, so it'll be released next week. With I think it's May 2nd. Ish would be the time we would close it, and then it would take some time to score them and figure out, and then we'd go back to council to award that RFP. So you'd see it again at that point in time.
Great, thank you, Darcy. Questions on this report? Councillor Regan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Darcy, I'm just wondering that the building itself is ready for occupancy.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Regan. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, there is a little bit, there might be a few hours of cleanup depending on what the person wanted, but for the most part, the kitchen's cleaned up, everything's in working order, the furnace is working, everything's working, so I don't see an issue of why it couldn't be occupied in the very near future.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Darcy.
Did I see your hand up, Deputy Mayor?
So I guess myself, I kind of been changing my mind. I've been very vocal about making it a parking lot, no doubt. But I certainly when I go to make the decision, I think there's a couple things, making sure our minimum costs are covered. And that is going to be very important to me and I hope all of us to make that decision. And one thing that caught my attention, and we'll probably have to reach out to Tracy, I'm thinking Loins, is that when we discussed, there seemed to be changes or something in the taxes when it came to the Donnelly Museum, and we were able to reverse that or do that. So one, confirming taxes on that building. Secondly, for sure, just with our new water, I just don't know that the outlet size and that like there, so the water services, that cost for that tenant, potential tenant. Obviously they would pay, I'm assuming, gas and hydro. They were responsible for grass, snow, cleaning. It wouldn't be like a typical, building like this that we clean ourselves. Like, I really don't want our ratepayers subsidizing it. I don't. We certainly need to make sure. And then also, I saw you had a 3-year term lease or lease on that. So if there was something deemed that needed to be done, again, even if it's $6,000, spreading that over the 3 years, which, might be $300 a month or something. We need to be, I just want to be really, make sure, and I don't know if staff knows yet, the taxes on that building, which would be important to me, and insurance. Sorry, I missed that one. So taxes, insurance, the water, obviously gas and hydro will be to the tenant, all maintenance and all that. But it's just, I want to make that comment. I still don't know where I sit on it 100%, but I would think we would want that information before making a decision. Thank you.
To you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, I 100% agree. And I think in my report coming back when we get an RFP and get the amount that we are looking at possibly getting in rent, I will also laid out the expenses of what we foresee in the building and make sure that council is comfortable that we are covering our costs plus maybe having some in case something was to happen. So I'll make sure that is in my report when I bring it back in the RFP.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Hodgins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Deputy Mayor actually covered most of the questions I had. I was also going to ask about property maintenance, the grass, the snow clearing, utilities, just because it's not laid out in the RFP. Unless there's like an attachment to that RFP, like say the draft, like rental agreement or leasing agreement that would lay out all the information. But maybe just to confirm if Darcy can just so utilities and property maintenance, that would be on the tenant, I guess, call them a tenant.
I think unless there's unforeseen circumstance, we would put that in the lease agreement as the tenant's responsibilities. But again, with my RFP, when I come back for award, I'll bring a draft lease agreement of what the lease would look like that we would get into with the leaser and make sure that everybody's happy with what. But yeah, I would rather them look after the property maintenance and utilities. I think that's the more fair way to do it.
Yeah, and thank you. And yeah, I was certainly going to ask about insurance and indemnities that would be worked into that agreement. But I guess we're moving pretty quickly in wanting to post the RFP soon. I think that for the people that are putting proposals in for this 3-year lease, it's important that they have that information so they know what they're bidding on. I think we want to avoid the situation where, somebody puts in this price and then they say, oh, well, I didn't think I had to pay for, all of these things. So I think we have to be really clear with that up front. Otherwise we're going to get into this, negotiation phase afterwards. So, but other than that, I'm very excited to see this go ahead and looking forward to seeing what comes in.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll take that as a little bit of advice, and we'll maybe work with procurement before we release to be a little bit more clear on exactly which way we're stipulating that. So yeah, I'll definitely do that.
I'm not going to repeat what has been said because I do think this is kind of exciting. I was kind of actually surprised in your report when you said that you'd already had a number of calls from people interested in the property. So to the deputy mayor's point, I kind of thought, well, it'll just be a parking lot, but that would be great if something can come out of it. But I am in agreement too. I don't want our ratepayers to have to be bearing any cost for this. And if we can spell it out for those interested parties, that I think that's best. So, okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, with that, you do have a recommended motion that we receive the report and that Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph approve staff to proceed with the request for proposal for renting and leasing 269 Main Street. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Did you have anything verbal or anything else, Darcy? Lisa, Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick verbal update. I sent council and some of our staff and Economic Development Committee an email today regarding a virtual tariff kind of session that we're going to host. So that was brought forward at our Middlesex Economic Development staff meeting that we have in the county about a quarter. So we brought forward how if we could host one of these things. So the county has kind of done this and taken the lead on hosting this tariff section, all knowing that we all know it's frequently to change, but at least we're going to have an option to maybe learn some more about the tariffs. Housing Accelerating Fund. So we meet bi-weekly. Our role in that is working with Republic Consulting about our community improvement plan and how we can ensure that the CIPs incorporate that part of the Housing Accelerating Fund. Beginning of May, we're going to have probably surveys coming out and stakeholder meetings with staff and some other developers, those sort of things. So we will have some little meetings happening. So again, we meet every 2 weeks. So things are moving along quite quickly. And that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Lisa. Many questions for Lisa? Okay. With that, councillor comments. Councillor Regan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to staff, to Abby, for the wonderful community guide that came out. I saw that. It was a wonderful picture of council for everybody to look. We always look great. We always look great. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to staff for putting that together.
Thank you. I'll be curious to see all the the colored covers. That'll be a fun project. That'll be a fun project. Any other councillor comments? Nothing? Nothing? Okay. All right, then we will go forward. No changes to budget, notices of motion, into motions and accounts, which we have none. So we've got just the 3 bylaws in front of us tonight. So the motion in front of us is that if no one cares to speak to bylaws 13-2025 through 15-2025 inclusive on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor, and that's carried. And before I do, pitch-in day is the 26th, right? Okay, right. Okay, resolved. So a motion to adjourn at 7:39. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor?